Hey folks, good morning. How you guys doing today? That's good to hear. Sun's doing good too, it seems. Morning, everybody. Yeah, once again, I'm Brian. I'm with the Santa Monica Mountains Fund. I'm going to be talking today as part of our SAMO Fund team, but in the back, let's not forget we have our wonderful Manny and our two interns, Myrna and Emmy. They're doing wonderful work. Just a quick note or rule of thumb here is that I'm going to be helping and providing resources, but don't feel like I'm keeping you hostage. If you need to get going and collect the milkweed, feel free. Manny and everyone else at the back can help you with it as well. So a little bit about me, or at least in general, what we're doing here today. Better. I'm here with the Santa Monica Mountain Fund. We are a nonprofit partner to the National Park Service. We are based out here in Newberry Park, Thousand Oaks, which is about a 25-minute drive, 30 minutes. If you folks ever find yourself there, which I really encourage, we have a beautiful native plant nursery out there. And we do a lot of volunteer events, Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays. Our wonderful team is run by Antonio Sanchez, who will be here in a bit, and Carla. They both have a bunch of programs that you folks can volunteer to our Eventbrite. And if you find yourself there and you volunteer those days, we have 3 native plants you can take back with you as well. Most of the plants that we grow there are also for our conservation efforts. So we do a lot of planting during the wet season, where we'll go into the Santa Monica Mountains and we'll plant a lot of native plants that are just in need of the biomes that were mostly affected by the Woolsey fire at the time. But today in specific, we're going to be talking about this plant here, narrow leaf milkweed. We're going to talk a little bit about some more of the melancholy parts, why we were brought on for this grant to give this stuff away, as well as what we're doing to change and how you folks can grow this in your own homes, whether it's in pots or it's, yeah, once again, I'm a milkweed technician for the Santa Monica Mountains. I won the term out so many times, I basically just get paid for the dirt. That's what I do. And for that, we were brought on for this grant that allows us to give out 25,000. So for a total of 15,000 this year, and hopefully we're going to be able to do this again next year. And that's specifically just with the relief locals that we'll be working with this time here. And it's a fairly easy plant to grow, but also one that is really important. The main reason for it is because this is the host plant to monarch butterflies, which I'm sure we're all pretty comfortable or aware with at least. And if anyone's ever kind of done some sort of community science or been involved in counts before, we did a lot of these counts for monarch butterflies back in the 90s, back in the 80s. They were beautiful big numbers in the millions, in the several millions actually. And then you get more into the timeline that we are today, post pandemic, at least post lockdown, and everything. And these counts are mostly in the thousands, in the low thousands too, not even the hundreds of thousands. And so that's where we were brought up for this trend. And basically, what we're going to be doing is we're going to back up the nursery, collect it through the month, so this is the transfer community to all of them. Our growth seeds that we collected here to have that sort of population that's going to be genetically able to do well. And a lot of that is impacted by climate change. So a lot of it is a little melancholy and out of our control. So we had something, for example, like this year that plays a big impact where we've had climate change have given us a really wet winter and a really extended winter. And that's beautiful. You get a really big super bloom. But what that does for a plant like this, that goes dormant, is we typically don't see this sprout up until when we normally get it is March. But this year we got it more towards June. So for anyone that's grown this before, if you feel like you've had any experience with it or any difficulties with it, it's a really easy plant to grow. It just depends the conditions. This plant is a beautiful plant at remembering weather. Is everyone familiar? Have we heard of tropical milkweed? Beautiful. Okay, well, we'll start off with that a little bit. So with tropical milkweed, it's a beautiful plant. Don't get me wrong, it grows almost the same as this one. It grows about a meter in height, 3 feet to be exact. And it grows these beautiful red and orange flowers. We love how they look. They're vibrant. My family and myself included are from Centro America, El Salvador. So we love colorful plants. We really love that it calls out to us. And they love bringing those colorful plants here. But the thing is that I noticed as gardeners here in California is we tend to plant a lot with our eyes. We don't tend to plant a lot with what's going to be good for our nature, our biomes, and restore the land that we're working on as well. So with that being said, it's really good and interesting to grow a plant like this as opposed to tropical milkweed. People love growing tropical milkweed. Don't get me wrong; it's a really easy plant to grow for the most part because it stays awake the entire year. So folks are like, "Oh, I grow tropical milkweed. They're growing this, and it'll grow in October, December, January, so on and so forth." But what you're doing there at that point is you're letting the plant grow, and you're going to have basically butterflies that have an Airbnb open to them the entire year. They're going to be able to stay there, and they're not going to know to migrate away or their ways. It's like giving me a Barnes and Noble gift card and leaving me in a Barnes and Noble 24/7. I will not leave. And with that being said, that's why tropical milkweed, it's a interesting plant because it's beautiful and it grows well, but it leaves a lot of room for error for butterflies to not migrate and as well get exposed to an OE parasite if you've had that trouble with your monarch butterflies before. Don't get me wrong, all of our milkweeds are susceptible to that. The only difference is this one goes dormant. So if you're growing this one, when you get into our months like November, December, January, this plant will die down to the ground, and what that looks like is the green leaves and all the flora that grows from it will just turn into foliage and sticks that are dried out. It's a great way of remembering where you've left your plants. And we're going to talk more about like pollinator plants that you can grow and other things you can establish that might be able to make your area a little bit more fluorescent if that's what you're going for. But it's a really easy plant in that sense because this will die down. It'll kill off any parasites it has going on it or any sort of risk of anything else. There's not a lot of maintenance that needs to go into this plant. Whereas tropical milkweed will stay up the entire year. But if you're interested in keeping your tropical milkweed, I just suggest you do this when you get into the holidays, when we get into Thanksgiving, when we get to Christmas, or and any of the late parts of January. Just cut it down to the ground. You can have it cut down to the ground, and if you're looking to get rid of it, let's leave it up for now. Let's let this one establish, and when this one is coming up next March, that's when you want to remove the other one. The reason we're mentioning that is because the monarch eggs you might have on your milkweed right now might still be on there. So we don't want to run any risk of those dying off for whatever reason. And what else do I want to get into? I guess we're going to get into growing for the most part right now. So we're going to start going over how to grow it into the ground, and we'll cover pots in case anyone's going to be also going into growing with pots. Now, for the main part of this milkweed, there are a few points I want to let you take home with you, but I'm giving you 5 plants to go with you today. Again, we're giving 25 of this plant or 25,000 of this plant, so we wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't something that's really manageable and easy to take care of. So what I encourage is the 5 I give you, keep together. We're going to try to keep them together 3 feet together at the minimum, 10 feet apart at the most. If you find that you have neighbors or maybe you're considering putting some in the front, some in the back locations or so on and so forth, just let us know at the back and we'll happily give you some more plants to take extra with you. At least we'll have plenty. And so when we're going in soils, this plant is one of the only plants that exists in every county here we have in California. It exists in high elevation, in urbanized cracks that I have in the valley, in our nurseries, so on and so forth. So this is a really easy plant that's adaptable to a lot of the soils we have. Loam soil, clay soil, some of the most dry soil. So what you're going to do is when we plant these, we want to plant these in full sun if you can. It loves full sun, but we also have partial shade that works just fine too. And when we're watering, we don't need to necessarily worry about how consistently we're going to water. We just want to water once a week and have it be a deep water. The first couple of weeks, you want to give these plants 2 to 5 gallons each plant of water, and you want to have that run for at least 2 weeks. After that, you can kind of take care of it if you have like a chile, a tomato plant, or any other plant like that. You can just water it as you need to. You don't need to fertilize a plant like this because the soil we have in California is really nutrient rich, even if you feel like you have the most uncared for soil that we have at any parts. Apart from that, you want to be 10 feet apart. Yes. Okay. Remembering everything else that's coming to me. Yeah. Is anyone here growing in pots? Beautiful. Okay. I wish there was a better guide to what you can do with pots, but the fact of the matter is that pots are so versatile. Some are plastic, some are made of more dense material, and we have people that have 5-gallon pots to 10 gallons. It varies, right? So the main thing I want to say is if you're going to go for a size, try to aim for a 2-gallon pot at the least, but 5 gallons is perfectly ideal. So you want to work with that, and you want to have each plant grow in that set. So you want to have one have a 5-gallon if you can. And the reason for that is that this plant grows by rhizome. So you're going to start off with 5, but you're going to end up with more, hopefully, if it's growing well, because it's going to grow underground horizontally, and it's going to give you shoots of the same plant. So if you're growing in pots, the only thing that matters is that now you have a native plant, just as you do in the soil, but it's not as drought tolerant as it is in the soil. Now you have a traditional plant, essentially. So you want to water that more. You want to get a good feel of what your pot feels like when it's full of water, and you want to kind of manage out time so that you can water it when it's halfway full. That's the main thing I could say about that. Sometimes that might be a couple waterings a week. Sometimes that might be more or less. It varies. The other thing is you want to feed this plant because the soil you're working with is going to run out of nutrients at one point. So you want to fertilize it. We use a 13-13 mix, but honestly, any fertilizer is fine. Antonio says that if the fertilizer hurts in price when you buy it, then it's probably a good one. And I think that's a good rule of thumb too. But honestly, you can find any of them that say consistently to what you're looking for that. And for the most part, that kind of covers the same route. So you want to be able to grow them 3 feet together in the pots or 10 feet apart at the most. That's just because if you have caterpillars, you want to have them be able to commute really well between each plant. And as for growing them, any place that you're going to grow them is fine. If you find yourself wanting to grow plants when they go dormant, also keep them 3 feet apart for the most part. And they love native plants, and we have also have some like varieties if you're growing different things like lavender or an okra that works too. But mostly any sort of pollinator that comes up early spring or late summer is a great plant. Our sunflowers, our sages, they love sages. And most of that is just so you can feed the monarch caterpillar moms that come on by before they lay their eggs on the milkweed. I feel like that's most of what covers for what you need to know when it comes to planting this milkweed. But if you folks have any questions, I'm really happy to take them and answer them as it goes. Yeah.
Where's your nursery in Utah?
It's in Thousand Oaks. It's called Rancho Sierra Vista. Yeah, if you look it up under Rancho Sierra Vista, it'll take you right directly to where we're located. And we also have a sign in the back that you can scan that has a QR code. That'll take you right to our Eventbrite. And our Eventbrite is where you can find all of our volunteer events. They run on Fridays, Saturdays, and Thursdays. And we have a variety of different things. I know in a couple of weeks, we're actually going to be doing a sewing party over at Rancho Sierra Vista. And we're going to have folks come in to sew in a whole bunch of milkweed that we collected this year as well. I saw a question there. Yeah.
The pollinators to grow with it, did you say sage and what was the other one?
Sages, sunflowers, we have buckwheat. Honestly, there's a bunch of plants that come into bloom at different points. Um, but sages are some of the ones that we notice that do the best. But anything that will come in bloom early spring or late summer works best. I know that a white sage might be a little bit of a harder plant to grow for whatever reason. Yeah, Antonio? But purple sage, black sage does fine. I love sunflowers like azaleas. I use a whole bunch of them, so those will grow perfectly just too.
And zinnias, those sorts of things?
I'm not sure on that one,
Okay.
but that's not because I. That's just because I'm not sure with that plant. I haven't grown it myself. I'd like to think so.
Can I help you? Can I help
Yeah,
you?
of course.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. My name's Antonio. I get to work alongside Brian. Um, I think we're promoting the use of early and then late blooming pollinator plants, nectar plants for the monarch moms and dads. So for us, that's like January, February, March, and then August, September, October. So I think ribes, which is the currants, I brought some to give out. It's one of the edible plants. Those are awesome plants. So those flower like sometimes around Christmas, but more like January, February, March. They're beautiful plants. And then like something like coyote bush or goldenrod that flowers late, right? It's like a Walmart. Walmart opens at 5. There's no one there. But if our monarchs are waking up at 5, we need to have stuff for them. So, and we think with climate change and other reasons that they are waking up a little bit earlier, and maybe even returning later. So that's why promoting. I like to say that March, April, May, it's easy to find something flowering, right? Everything flowers. You could be. Is anyone here blind? I don't know. You guys can see. If you're blind, I'm sorry if you lost your sight. But you could, even blind people can see flowers in April and May. Everything's just flowering. So we're not worried about that. We're worried about early January, February, and then September, October. Sorry for the blind remark. Hopefully it helped illustrate it though. Yeah. So buckwheats. Some of the buckwheats flower really late. There's a lot of really good plants. Yeah.
Yes.
When it goes dormant, do you let it just die back, or do you cut it and take it to the ground?
It'll die back. It'll die back and it'll stay as like dry sticks that poof off. Most of the time, folks like keeping them. I know for us at our nursery, we usually cut it down and we collect the sticks and we hold on to them. There's a lot of really good indigenous practices that continue to go on to this day with that. And there's a lot of beautiful stories that aren't mine to tell that also go with that as well. But there's a lot, it'll mostly die down. Yes.
Aphids.
Aphids, that's a great question. So aphids are definitely something that's going to come up on your milkweed. If you haven't seen them before, they're these tiny little orange fellas. They love milkweed. As far as I know, there are no studies that have come to show that they harm your plant in any way, shape, or form. They kind of just reside there. It's like a little stay for them. I would worry more about your ant colony taking the aphids there than I would about your actual aphids. The reason that they're there is because ants like taking aphids to there to bring back to the queen ant later. And that's a whole different thing, but I can talk here about that in the back for sure. That's a really cool thing. But yeah, aphids should not harm your plant in any way, really. They don't harm or stunt the growth of any of the monarchs or even take food sources from them. So I want to say that they'll be fine for the most part. Yes.
Can I add on to that?
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of people are worried about if you grow tomatoes, like your aphids are gonna spread.
Yeah.
We've never seen them spread to other. It's an oleander aphid. There's a bunch of different aphids, right? So it's very specific, well, to oleander, but I don't know why it loves the milkweed. I've been out in the field, off road for miles where there's nothing. Like if you wanted to get rid of someone, that's where you would go. And even then, right, like miles away from paved desert milkweed, the aphids are still there. And we haven't seen that they jump on other plants or that they damage. And anything that you would do to treat for the aphids could potentially hurt the eggs or the little baby caterpillars. I don't know if you guys seen like monarch eggs, but they're tiny. They're smaller than they're harder to see than aphids. So.
Well, my father-in-law used to swear by planting, I think it was garlic, it might have been chives near his roses, and that would help with the aphids. Is that okay to plant them near milkweed? Or
I haven't had that experience of growing that before. So.
Yeah, I think you're asking, is it going to damage the plant or will it take the same water? 100%. I think Brian personally grows. Don't you grow wheat next to you?
He's so funny. Hilarious.
You can basically grow anything.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very, very easy to grow.
Thank you.
And while we're at that, we could definitely cover some of the more parts that cover into when you're getting milkweed, some hesitations that people have. One of the most common questions I get is milkweed toxic? Because what it distributes is this white substance called latex. It's usually what the caterpillars eat as a defense mechanism. So it makes them really bitter. It makes them really sour for a lot of bugs or predators that come on by. And it is a toxic substance to consume once it's fresh like that. But I'd like to think that we all have the peace of mind of not biting a plant, right? At least if we don't know what it is. But some of us have pets,
Yeah.
right? And some of us wonder if our pets are going to go to it. Let me put it this way. I have a dog. Her name is Kaya. I love her. She's had 6 years of experience in her life. But sometimes I look behind her eyes and there's not much going on there. There's not much IQ really in general. And even she knows not to get near the milkweed. No, she knows. She's just happy to be there. That's what's going on in that brain. But she knows to stay away from the milkweed. And I've had the same experience with most other people that have come by and say that their pets don't really get near it for whatever reason. And I wish I could say what it was, but they know not to get near it. Yes.
How do you keep enough milkweed? These little guys, when we plant them for the first year,
Yeah,
they devour.
they do. They do.
How do you grow them and have enough so that you can actually supply life to a monarch?
I want to say that's mainly based off the studies that we do. So that's how we've come to the conclusion that 5 is what works best to give you guys to take home with you. I know that I forgot the nonprofit, but another one suggests 4. We usually work with 5 for that same reason of giving you 5 to take home with you. And I know that these are smaller plants we're giving you as well, right? We're not giving you a 1-gallon Home Depot that you might get or something like that. But what I am giving you is a young plant, a plant that can learn the language of soil much more efficiently than a 1-gallon, much older plant. It'll transfer much easier and it'll develop much more faster for you guys. And the thing is, this is a perennial plant, meaning that every year it's going to come back and it's going to grow for you and it'll stay there as long as it's well kept. However, it grows like a perennial. It grows fast. It knows that it grows like an annual, pardon. So it'll grow like a fruit you've grown or like a poppy, anything that grows really fast and needs to sprout on through the year. So that's why I suggest growing it now. You're going to be getting it for the hot months, which is typically March. Granted, this year we had a little bit extended winter and we'll go into September. And by the time I give this to you, by the end of the year, this will hopefully be 3 feet in height. It'll be pretty tall. And I'd like to think most of you will get flowers at least next year. But for now, that is the whole point. We're going to give you enough food source for that. And that's the ideal part of giving you 5. But if you feel like you have the space and you want to be able to get a few more, I'm happy to give you more in the back.
Can I add on to that? Can I add on to that real quick? Because they are small, and if you get monarchs that lay their eggs, they're dead this year. 100% they're dead. But we're not thinking short term, right? We're thinking long term. We know that this milkweed has existed here probably for thousands of years, and we're just continuing that work. So if you have tropical milkweed, he already went over it, keep it, get rid of it next year, blah, blah. But these guys, if they get eaten to the ground, like this is the roots or this is the leaves, and then that's the soil. They get eaten to the ground, they grow by rhizome, right? They spread underground. So at the nursery, we'll actually cut them back to the ground to fill them out faster, right? So they don't mind getting eaten, but you know, it's a long, yeah. But by next year they'll be huge. By this, if they don't get eaten, they should be about 2 to 3 feet tall, right? By late September. If they're not that big, we'll give you a refund. Guaranteed.
And he made a good point. That's what it's trial and error a lot of the time. I would not like to admit that I've killed more plants in my day than I would want to, but that's part of it. Some plants aren't gonna make it, and some caterpillars also won't make it too. But that's all part of the cycles of life, and we're gonna go through much more of that as well. Cardi? Yes.
I know that for like when you put them in pots, in my experience is they can be for a year with the same soil, but at least for me this year, I didn't see it in the pot really doing much.
Sure.
So I added a new layer of soil.
Yeah.
And sure enough, it just gave me all that new leaves that I needed. A little late, but trial and error is how it goes, right?
And I agree. I think that pots are some of the more liberating parts of planting to work with, because I live in an apartment complex, so I don't get to plant stuff in the ground all the time. And I like pots because you can be very experimental with them. You could give different fertilizers, you can give different water amounts. I like to water my plants deeply because I like to imagine I'm not watering the roots, I'm watering the soil. So that's what helps me, because I'm creating more of a well for the water as well. But it's the same way. Some mulches work different as well. So I like that you're doing that, because at the end of the day, what I'm giving you is data and information that we've collected from our nonprofits and from local partners. But all of this is based off of traditional ecological knowledge, plant sciences, as well as community science. So all of us are, in one way or another, able to impact this and make a bigger change for ourselves. You don't need to just listen to what we're doing. If it works for you, it works for you.
Can I add one thing on there? So in pots, after you keep stuff for like 3 months, 6 months, if you don't add fertilizer to your pot, the plant will be alive, but it's like just giving me like water and like a piece of bread like every 5 days. I'll be alive, but I'll be a lot smaller. So that's what we see with pots. That soil that's in there is, it's like wood, compost, sand, rock, and then there's nutrients in there too. And then so the plant's gonna eat up the nutrients real fast. So probably what happened with you is when you threw the new stuff in, it had some new nutrients in it, and it got access to, along with breaking dormancy. In nature, they have access to 10 feet. Just they're in there, right? They're and they have this beautiful rhythm. In pots, they grow a lot faster. They're just bulkier, and so they need a little bit more food. We actually feed our plants a lot. Some of our plants, if we want them to look good and grow fast, like and the other stuff that we don't care so much about, we'll keep pretty lean. Yeah.
Yes.
I like how this is like a White House press conference right here. Like, we got CNN, we got Telemundo over here. Yeah, it's
You were talking about fertilizing if it's in pots, but you were saying, did you say you don't need to fertilize it if it's in the ground, or should you still fertilize?
You don't need to. You could mulch what you're planting around if you want to worry about more of the heat we're going to get, but California's got some of the best nutrient-rich soil that we have here. Okay. And definitely for another point I want to point out for when it comes to pots versus ground, when we get into our winter or into the watering, right? I said we're going to do a once a week good deep watering the first couple of weeks, and we want to kind of maintain a once a week watering since. Getting into the second year, if you're growing into the ground, you're going to have to do just a once or twice a month watering. It's a very drought resilient plant. However, if you're growing in pots, again, it's a traditional plant. So when we get to it being dormant, you want to leave that be if it's in the ground. Nature can take over that and it can get watered just fine. However, in our pots, we want to water at least once or twice a month during the dormancy season when we're getting into the cold months.
And then this is a lot of information and it's so helpful.
I'm sure it's a lot.
You guys have this compiled somewhere?
Yes.
Well, Brian comes to houses. Was it $200 an hour?
No. It's just paying for my commute and maybe just showing me around. What's your favorite part of your house? All I could say.
Hi, Brian. While we're answering these questions, because I know some people want to get on, we can take as long as we want, Brian, on this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pass out a vegan, so it doesn't have no egg, it has no dairy, mesquite and corn cookie. So if anybody wants one, just stick your hand out, and it's some of the food that we're gonna talk about.
Okay, perfect. If someone faints, though, don't take any more cookies. I don't know what he put in that. So all the plants that you folks are taking home with you, the top plant of the 5 bunch you take has a QR code on it. That'll take you right to our Eventbrite website. That's if you want to volunteer. But right there, we also added a tab that's monarch milkweed. You can't miss it. That'll take you right to our Samophone website. And that has everything I talked about and probably much more. And it's everything about growing, watering, and we have a bunch of QR and description-based Canva files that we made for watering and for planting.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, what's going on?
So I know we like kind of want them to spread, but
Yeah.
are they like voracious?
It's not a black mustard I'm giving you. I'm not giving you something that will invade your household like oat or anything like that. It's a fairly easy plant to take care of for the most part. It will spread, but if you manage it and you're cutting it down, it won't give you any trouble like that.
Okay. So like if we have a garden with like other plants and stuff, it's easy enough to keep them.
It's easy enough to maintain it. That's because it grows by taproot. So, or the taproot is very dense and deep, so you could just remove one of those out, and it's a fairly easy plant to move. Whereas I've had a long, disturbing history with mustard that is not very fun. Alrighty. Any more questions? Okay. Well, I guess I'll clear the way for Antonio to present on his edible plant talk. I'm very excited for that. But thank you, folks, for so much for making the time, and that covers it.
So that was a mesquite. Wait, we should give a round of applause for Brian, huh?
Yeah.
Brian, aplauso. That's not an easy talk to give on your own, huh? I feel like it's hard to. Yeah. Cool. So let's talk about food, because we're here for the milkweed, which, native plants. There's over 6,000 that are native to California, and we could plant them because they're pretty. Usually, when you go to, let's be honest, when you go to Home Depot, it's a dating website, right? That's all it is. You're just looking for just a pretty partner for your garden. That's all you're doing. And wouldn't it be amazing if there was a dating? No, maybe there's a dating website where you could find someone without looking at their picture. Imagine that, a dating website that just said, "This is what I do. I've fed local monarchs for thousands of years, and they need me. They won't survive without me." I don't think you even need to see the plant at that point. You don't even need to see the person. Like, I'm in, right? There's so many different things besides. We can be honest. The reproductive parts of a plant and of people. I think our best relationships are formed when we get to know people. So one relationship that I have very intensely with native plants is food. If you eat something, it becomes you. But then you want to know how to grow it, or you want to know how to protect it. You want to know how to collect it, and it's just another way to, to tie yourself to California, right? I think you eat California, you protect California. You eat California, you become California, and I think that's my one of my philosophies. I don't know. I think I'm just talking right now. I remember I was born here in Oxnard. I grew up in El Paso, and I hadn't gone back to El Paso in a long time, probably like 6 or 7 years. And my brother, unfortunately, got sick last year, and so I got up in the airport, and I had my backpack. I had to go real quick, and I just had my backpack, and I got to the airport, and I got outside waiting for my sister-in-law to pick me up. And I remember just getting down and kissing the ground. And I forgot I had a backpack on, and the backpack came over my head, and it was a real spiritual / stupid moment. And then one of the guys walking by me, it's like, "It's good to be home, huh?" I'm like, "It is good to be home." How many people have lived in Oxnard for more than 5 years? This is home, right? This is home. Like, I have family in Rio. My dad used to own the gas station right there in Colonia. They used to have all the car washes in Colonia. I would really appreciate, just in the spirit of my dad, if you guys would help out, these folks out here. Even if you don't get a car wash, just kick them down a few bucks, right? That's the way that we do it. That's the way Oxnard does it. Is we're together, right? 200,000 people, and we do a lot of stuff together. So I think it's a beautiful thing. So let me tell you about some of the plants that I love. That's the first one that connects me to the desert, right? That's mesquite. So that's some mesquite flower. And I like to make people work for stuff. So my business cards are right there. That's my email. And we have recipe cards on how to make the mesquite, right? Um, so what I normally use is the honey mesquite, which if you guys don't know, mesquite's a desert tree. It starts like about Riverside County, all the way into Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, south into Mexico. And my family on my mom's part has been using it for a long time. They stopped using it this generation, right? About 40, 50 years ago, they stopped using it. And we probably know some of the reasons why we stopped using it. We move away from areas where it's wild or found very easily. Move into cities, we get more of a Western diet. Those things are all fine. Um, Maybe not fine, but it's just what happens. And I remember talking to my dad from Mexico and just wanting to know about like what did you guys used to eat? Like, do you remember? And talking about mesquite. So I really love mesquite. The only bad thing about talking about mesquite in Oxnard is it's hard to grow in Oxnard, not because it doesn't get hot enough. Well, I'm sorry, it doesn't get cold enough. It doesn't get hot enough. And we have this cloud cover, right? And you'll see it with like Desert Museum trees. Chalopsis, some of the desert willows, some of the plants that really want to be in the desert, you'll see this kind of powdery mildew. And what I've noticed with mesquite is it never produces a sweet fruit. I've seen it fruit here in Oxnard, but I've never seen it produce a good fruit. And it looks like a pea, right? So if you guys live in a hotter area, so that would be, I think, even east of Santa Paula. So we're talking probably Fillmore, Simi Valley, those areas. I think you're good to produce a crop of mesquite. But I think reality is like the you need like a $300-$400 ninja, or like a huge like something to grind the hell out of that, because it's a really. What should I do with these? Can I give this to you? Yeah. Yeah. There you go. It's not right there. Thank you. You can just have those, I guess. Not that you need them. Anyways, what I'm saying is, unless you want to get into farming, which is not what this talk is about, because I think acorns are beautiful, but they take a long time to process. And I don't think it's realistic for us to start talking about eating acorn at this moment, right? I think it's a beautiful food that people have relied on for thousands of years, but in reality, I don't think it's what's going to happen. So this talk is about how do we use foods in our daily lives, right? Stuff that my family uses. So I think the mesquite flour is something that you can incorporate by buying it online. You could either buy honey mesquite, which is our native mesquite, or they're actually starting to farm Argentinian mesquite, and it comes from, believe it or not, Chile and Argentina. And it's a super low. If you guys have been to the desert, I don't know if you know the desert, it rains 4 inches, sometimes 3 inches, and there's an edible crop that gets produced. There's so many benefits to it. And so I would encourage you guys, if you like it, to start incorporating it. The way that we use it is pancakes. We use the cookies, tortillas. I know some people use it like in smoothies and make pizza doughs out of it and stuff. I don't get into all that. Kind of just do the more simpler stuff. But I think it's a really good way to not just get yourself, but talk to your family about your friends about food, right? About native plants, and they start to realize that stuff is here for more than just it's just a weed or it's just something that's out there. So a little bit more local plant that I love is hummingbird sage. Anybody here ever grown hummingbird sage? Yeah, right on. Have you guys ever tried to eat hummingbird sage? No? Yeah, I love hummingbird sage. So I've eaten it 3 different ways. One of the easiest ways, there's a recipe there to make a tea, either a hot tea or a cold tea from hummingbird sage. If you guys don't know hummingbird sage, this is the leaves right here. And I know it doesn't look that good, but those of you who've grown it could probably back me up. It's a beautiful plant. And hummingbird sage is a perfect plant for showing you how to garden with native plants. Because if you go out to see hummingbird sage in nature and it's flowering in March and April and you take a picture of it and maybe you bring your friend to go see it in August, you might not find the plant. They're like, where's the plant? Oh, is that the plant? I hate native plants. Let me go back to Lowe's and get rosemary. So the plant is being smart. And they have a lot of water in the leaves. And so in nature, what hummingbird sage does is shrink down and basically go dormant, right? So small patches, they could be like almost hard to find. But in our gardens, we water every 10 days. They're evergreen. I've worked at 8 different native plant nurseries or native plant gardens. And out in Claremont by Pomona, which we'll get about 100 105, 110 sometimes. In part shade, under an oak tree, being watered every 10 days, like a lawn in August and September, right? So it's just a light, refreshing watering. I'm not asking you to put drip irrigation every 2 days. We're just refreshing the plant and it can look good. So teas, the easiest way. The real fancy way, if you guys live in like Santa Monica or Ojai, is those seem like fancy places to me. Agoura Hills, probably. Is to take the bigger leaves and fry them. And that should taste really, really good that way. About 25 to 35 seconds in whatever vegetable oil or frying oil you use. You flip them over 2 or 3 times. You crack a little salt and pepper. You take them out to the customer, $20 for a local appetizer, right? And there's like 5. That actually is really good. I would encourage you guys to try it. I'm not a cook, so I don't know, like I don't have the skills to develop all this. But someone told me that we should try baking it like a kale chip, that it would probably have the same consistency. So, but the way that I use it, the way that my family uses it, and I apologize for not having any gluten-free crackers. So let me pass it out. If you guys don't want a gluten-free cracker, what I'm gonna do is put some syrup on this hummingbird sage syrup. And if you guys don't do gluten, then I can just put it on your thumb, or you can open your mouth and like we're in Pomona or the Q Club. This is I can bust out my Oxnard joke. Usually I have to. Yeah. Who else? You guys? Yeah. And I don't think you guys don't seem like a Q Club.
Thank you.
So about 5 to 10 leaves hummingbird sage. And when I do it, I'll use the bigger ones. And so this depends on your garden. If you're going to try to do this by collecting stuff in nature or stuff that's not your garden, first of all, you probably shouldn't do that. We want to ask permission, whether it's from the landowner or whoever, to collect. But if you guys go in August, September, they're going to be either dry or really intense. When sages in general start to go dormant, the leaves will shrink and then they'll concentrate their flavors in their leaves. So if you're cooking with the sage, our native sages, our California sages, in September, the flavor is going to be way different than if you're cooking with it in February or March, where all the new leaves they're full of water and the oils are kind of like washed out, right? So if you guys are gardening, you're probably watering and so you want to adjust, right? So we use 5 or 10 leaves and then we blend it up. The first one is honey. Maybe who could help me out here? Mirna, could you help me out, por favor? Yeah? Could you just take this honey and just splash it on these guys, their crackers? Por favor. So that's hummingbird sage honey. That's about 5 leaves. And try it out.
Oops, sorry about that. No worries.
Do you chop it in there or like infuse it somehow?
I chew it up and spit it in. I use the little blender, the little ninja blender, or like a food processor. You could use a molcajete, I guess, but it's good, huh? I like your word better though. Delicious. So my kids use that in yogurt all the time. If we make fresh tortillas with butter and a little bit of hummingbird sage honey, it's magic. On biscuits, anywhere that you would put honey.
So you just take a normal thing of honey and blend in 5 to 10 minutes?
Yeah. And then so we're lucky because we usually go through it pretty quick, but that'll hold for like a month if you need to, because honey has some of those properties.
Yeah.
I have agave nectar right here, homegirl. Thank you for asking. It's like I said, you set me up.
Yeah.
There you go. I'm gonna try a different one. We're gonna do Triscuits. So I was totally out of. I was in a rush this morning to get the.
You're working with him, aren't you?
Just chill in the crowd.
Oh, pancakes. I mean,
I wonder
waffles.
if you could do it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You guys want to touch them over there? Yeah. The agave syrup, please.
Do you know what the health benefits are to the hummingbird cake?
It doesn't. I don't think there's any health benefits except to your heart.
That's enough.
Oh, I have no idea.
Yeah.
No one. No, I don't think anyone's ever checked or.
I mean, it's probably similar to like
Yeah, well, there's over 1,000 sages in the world, right? So it's hard to. And this hummingbird sage it's different. It's a different plant. If you guys know our native sages, most of them fall into this like woody, like black sage, white sage category. And there's a few like I don't call them weird because they probably think we're weird. There's some desert sages that are really trippy. And then there's like some Baja sages that are crazy. Our annual sages are all nuts. But this is kind of the only perennial, soft, like, kind of spreading sage. Yeah. So it's almost like when God was making the world, like he brought all his tools to make plants and like he left that one there for it was supposed to be somewhere else. It's so weird. That's a bad creation story, by the way.
Do the hummingbirds actually like it?
The hummingbirds adore it. And so this is one that is a good it's not great for monarchs, but amazing for hummingbirds. And I've had it flower Christmas, but normally January with maintenance and water into June. So that's 6 months of a plant, low water that you're watering 3 times a month at the most, and that will produce food for you and then pollinators. Right? It's an awesome plant.
see that at the nursery in Thousand Oaks.
Yeah, so our nursery, I don't know if it's clear, but our nursery, we work with the National Park Service. So we're basically like, imagine if you guys go to Yosemite or like Sequoia, and there's a nursery there that really just grows for restoration. Like at Sequoia, they'd be growing sequoia trees and like, stuff to restore Sequoia. And then every now and then they'll get a grant to do other stuff, but they're not open for sale. That's what we are. We don't sell anything. We give everything away. We work with State Park to help grow some other stuff. We have this grant. To me, it's more important to get people paid. So when we can get a grant that we pay people to do this and then grow native plants, it's like a win-win. And then help an insect that's potentially endangered, like that's amazing. So we are trying to do more native California tribal work, right? Working with local folks on their plants. And then we're trying to do more native food stuff too, but it's all associated with grants, right? But if you guys come to our nursery, like we're open today till 2, and you volunteer for 2 hours, we're happy to give you 3 plants for free. And hummingbird sage is our most popular plant, and white sage is our second most popular. Yeah, so we have some cool stuff. So I want to talk about another one. Oh wait, let me ask you, what do you guys think? It's good, right? Yeah, and easy. If I'm a bad cook. If I can make it, I mean that's not really cooking. But to me, making that with some mesquite pancakes is just it's a good morning, right? Like we have these cookies all the time. These little cookies in the morning, just for if you don't have time for breakfast, or if you're in the field, like those are really good for hiking. Or we do a lot of work where we're walking like 3 to 5 miles there and then 3 to 5 miles back to collect seed. Like those are perfect because they don't weigh you down, right? They give you energy for.
A lot of protein in it.
Again, you guys with the nutrition questions, you guys are killing me. Actually, I should know those answers.
I like bringing protein stuff.
Yeah, I don't think they're high in protein because the main thing is masa, so cornmeal, mesquite, which has very little protein, but a lot of nutrients, right? It's pretty well rounded as far as carbs, protein. I looked at a fiber. It's full of fiber because what they do is they take the whole, imagine a pea and let the pea dry and then grind that whole thing. Not the peas, the outer skin too. So there's a lot of fiber. So the bathroom's right there if you guys need. There is also a few trees that look like they need some nutrients. That was a poop joke.
We got it.
And let's talk about fruit, because fruit I think is the easiest one to do because then you don't have to prepare anything, you just eat it. So the easiest fruit for me is golden currant, ribizarm. That's the first native food I ever had on purpose. And I probably ate some other stuff, not on purpose. So this is golden currant that's getting no water right now in our field. And so it's super typical. That's the fruit right there. And if you guys remember, I was talking about this as one of the early plants to flower. So this is going to flower January, February, March. And your harvest on a shrub, think of like a blueberry. you'll see it flower, and then you should see a fruit develop maybe about 6 to 8 weeks later. The fruit will be mature, right? So we're harvesting as early as April, but it's more like May is the perfect time for these guys. And so it's a pretty early fruit. It's earlier than plums or I guess strawberries come at that time. But it's a beautiful plant. It's a really nice plant to grow. It could be a skinny plant too. So if you guys need to exfoliate it, or it works really well in like these little narrow areas, like right there. So there's that sidewalk, and then there's a glass window, and there's about a 18-inch deep, 2-foot deep area. So if you give golden currant space, she'll take it up. But if you manicure her, or if you exfoliate, if you flatten her out, she'll become flat and then taller, right? So it is easy to maintain. The full sun to part shade. Yeah, part shade, less fruit, right? Most plants, not all plants, but most plants want to flower in sun. But this guy can tolerate. There's another plant that we had growing like wild out in Claremont. Claremont, it's 110 degrees and in full sun, right? So it's super tolerant, very, very tolerant. Clay soil, sandy soil, Oxnard, Claremont, like, kind of a lot of different. What I have noticed is that it doesn't produce as much fruit if you just have one plant. It produces some, but kind of like blueberries, if you have 3 or more, kind of the magic number is 3 for blueberries, for golden currant too. So I'm offering you guys, if y'all want to take some home, the golden currants are here. And what I would do is pot those up into a bigger pot this time of year, like a 5-inch pot, a 4-inch pot, like a quart, or even a 1-gallon pot, like where we're giving out the plants in, right? And then by October, they'll have rooted to the bottom if you didn't kill them. And then they can go into the ground. If you want, you could. If you're a really good gardener, you could put those into the ground right now. I would just be worried about some people forgetting about them. They're so shallow, they might dry out. On their own in nature, they kind of depend on the soil, how much, the area that they're in, like how much water they get. But in a well irrigated garden here in Oxnard, probably about 4 to 5 feet tall. Not as wide, it's a little bit narrower, but it's kind of like a vase shape, right? Like a vase shape with its hair kind of just poking everywhere.
Similar watering needs is like milkweed, like once or twice a week until it's established.
Yeah, that's a good question. So there's a really good list if you guys are into gardening of UC Davis. UC Davis came up with, and I hate giving. Anybody go to UC here? I'm sorry. You can tell I dropped out of Oxnard College, so I'm not. I'll even talk smack on people who graduated from Oxnard College. You think you're better than me? But for that, but the ag people and the hort departments are amazing there, and they came up with a list of 100 plants, not just native, but low water. So they had 5 requirements: low water, they had to look good almost all year, clay soil, 100-degree temperatures, and then have a good flower for pollinators. And there's a few other requirements too, and that's in Sacramento Valley. And so hummingbird sage is on that list, and golden currants on that list. So most of the stuff that's on that list easy to grow, which means it could take extra water or a little bit of water. It can take a lot of sun or part shade. It can take clay soil. It can take rocky soil. There are little different requirements, but did somebody ask? Did I answer whoever's question?
Yeah, great.
Okay, cool.
Will they grow in altitude like the Big Bear area?
Yeah, I would probably. So a good rule of thumb is anything woody that drops all of its leaves, it's probably a good chance it'll take altitude. Because what is that? That's if you guys go to Vermont, I've never been to Vermont, but if you go to Vermont, that's what happens, right? They drop their leaves, and what happens here in California is the opposite. We have our winter in July because we don't have cold. We have, well, not this part of California. We have the summer cold, which is the heat and the dryness, right? So our plants tend to go dormant during the summer, or if they're going to go dormant, a lot of them, I would say probably up to about 5,000 feet.
It's about 68.
Yeah, I would look up online then to see how the elevation it would take. A lot of ribes naturally grow in that elevation, though. They love it, right? They're under snow. They'll get all that water. They'll flower like May, June, July. They'll fruit, and then they're done by November. They'll wake up. Yeah. And then one more that I want to talk to you guys about, because I love
before you move on, is that
Sure.
a tangy fruit or a sweet?
It's sweet. When it's ready, it's sweet. Yeah. They call it golden currant, but I don't know who named it. But when it's ripe, it's yellow to red to like black. Which maybe they tried that yellow, red, black currant, and it didn't taste. That's probably what they did.
Kind of a mouthful.
Yeah. So I guess golden currant stuck. Yeah. So I would encourage you, and I would love for you guys to start growing that in a pot too. It's very easy. If you wanted to grow golden currant in a wine barrel or a little bit smaller, you could grow that in the middle, and then put 2 or 3 hummingbird sage under it. And holy Jesus, that would be an amazing pot.
Does it need to be staked if you grow it in a wine barrel?
The golden currant?
Yeah.
No. It's like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, tall and strong. You don't need it. Well, maybe at this point you need to stay Kareem. He get a little older. I read his book about John. Was a really good book. And then the last one I want to offer for you guys is black walnut, because a lot of us have small trees, right? Acorns, I think too big, takes too long to produce. Mesquite here in Oxnard, I don't think is a viable option to grow, but we could eat it. But I think black walnut's a perfect plant to develop this relationship with. There's a movement in LA, Northeast LA, to protect a lot of the old growth black walnut trees as a form of discouraging development and kind of protecting the last intact spots in LA, some hills out by Pasadena, El Sereno, those areas. And we know that black walnut just occurs here. It wants to be in flat areas where water accumulates, right? That's the Oxnard floodplain, right? That's Camarillo. It's crazy. It's like Oxnard. You could be, our hills, our native plant communities are like Oxnard. You could be in one spot and you'd be like, cool. I'll leave my garage open. It's cool. I'll leave my car running. I'll leave my keys. I'll leave my credit card out, right? And then you'll hit another neighborhood like, ooh, damn, I should probably close my garage. Like, they're plant community. There's different communities here, and there's different plant communities where you could just walk 5 feet and a completely different plant occurs. And so, black walnut wants to be here, right? It loves flatter areas where water occurs. So imagine a spot when it rains. If it rained an inch and you go there a day later and you can't tell that it rained, that's not where black walnut occurs, right? That's more like chaparral, coastal sage scrub, fairly sharp hills, but where the water accumulates, where it's flatter. That's where it rained a week ago and it still feels wet. That's where black walnut likes to be, right? And so that's a lot of our spots because we graded everything, right? And it's all flat. So
You have really heavy clay soil though. Would it do okay because clay kind of retains moisture?
it won't do okay. It'll do amazing.
Oh.
It'll do amazing. That was such. My grandma used to do that. Yeah. ¿Cómo están las tostadas? Oh, they're not good. They're great. No me gustaron, me encantaron. So this is a beautiful plant. You can get it to about 8 to 10 feet. It'll get much bigger than that if you need to. I'd say about 20 feet is probably about the biggest that we'll see it here in Oxnard in a healthy environment in a house, right? In nature, where there's a ton of water and good drainage and all that, they can get huge. But they are easy to maintain because they kind of grow water sprouts from the base. Whenever you see something do that, it usually means you could prune it really, really easy, right? So it's easy to shape. I love that plant, and it'll produce a crop probably in about 5 years if you guys are lucky.
That's a quick grower.
So it depends on how you water it. If you water it correctly, so this one is easy to grow, but if you want it to grow quick, then just follow this advice, right? And so this is what happens. Our plants, like black walnut, will die to the ground, burn to the ground in a fire. And they're one of the first things within a month. Sometimes there's 5-foot shoots coming up. There's all that energy stored in the roots, right? So what you want to do is instead of watering the plant, water the soil, right? So I would take this and even at this size, water it twice a month in the ground, but give it a ton of water. Give it like 2 to 5 gallons. Yeah. Get a moat like this big.
Yeah.
And what we do is actually we'll time how long it takes to deliver, every every house is different, the water pressure, but we'll time. Usually takes about a minute, maybe 30 seconds to get 5 gallons of water. And that's how much water we'll put in. But you can't put that much water at once usually, right? It'll pull up. So we'll actually time it. Or you can fill up a 5-gallon paint bucket and just slowly, but we want the water under.
Yeah.
With this plant, we're not trying to water the plant. We're trying to water the ground so the plant will go find the water because that's where it grows. It grows in those areas where there's water. So if you do that, it's a fast grower. If you have a drip system that just, every 18 inches there's water, and you put the plant here, and it's bare right here, and it's just sitting wet. That one spot is wet. They can grow slow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are the roots in, spreading and?
No, they don't bring up concrete. They don't. Yeah, they're. It's almost not a tree. It's almost like a big shrub. Like, so there's some more of these. I just wanted to share with you guys some plants that I think are easy to either grow or to start using. The black walnuts are amazing. If you guys have never had black walnuts, they're about this size. They're a little bit bigger, and so the nut has already been eaten out of this. But it's a cool plant to and those are, to me, those are jewelry. Those are gorgeous. That looks like a little owl's face. But I do want to. I don't have any flyers because they weren't ready. But I do have a full-on cooking class, July 22nd in Camarillo at Growing Works Nursery. So just to be clear, the friends of the campus is much more important than Growing Works. So we need to support them. But if you guys want to come for free, there's a free cooking class. I'll be showing you guys how to parch or lightly burn saltbush seeds, so Atriplex lentiformis. We're making some Cleveland sage pesto, which the recipe is on right there for. And there might be, I don't know if they can do alcohol there. So it might just be in my car, in my trunk. Yeah, do you guys have any questions about maybe specific plants that you've tried to eat? Why the person you gave them to died? Or
I have a question, but it's not about native.
Sure.
But obviously, we all have seen how much mustard there is everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard you can eat it.
Yeah.
Do you know how to process it at all?
Oh, I'm sure online, if you go online to process
I feel like
mustard
I've tried
seeds.
to look, but it's hard to tell. I've seen people process. I was trying to get some mustard seeds to pickle stuff.
Yeah.
And obviously, it's invasive. I've been trying to pick it. But I just,
I mean, the seed's not hard to find. The seed's easy to find. But as far as processing, I've never processed before.
Processing is really hard. It takes forever
I
to do.
know. I don't look it up. Anyways, but it's
Yeah.
curious.
If you're gonna eat the greens, it's like any other green.
Yeah. It's like mustard.
When they're younger, they're a lot better, right?
Yeah,
Once they start
not
to
as bitter.
they're horrible.
Can we access the recipes off your
Sure, my
website?
email's right there. No, it's not on the website. Actually, there's only one recipe online. If you go to we did a California Native Food Conference out at Claremont in 2015, and we have one recipe still online for that. Other than that, just email me, and I'll email you that.
Or maybe we'll just take a picture of it.
You can take a picture too, yeah, for sure. Does anybody have any other questions? No? Oh, well, there's a few more. If you guys want to try some more of that, you guys are welcome to. If you guys want to grab another cookie, you're welcome to.
Pine nuts in the.
There's pine nuts, yes, yeah, and I usually throw chia in there too. So I do want to give thanks to the friends of Campus Park. Is anybody here going to be a volunteer with them? What we like, I think what our vision is. I don't want to put myself with your group, Aurelio. I think we're
You're part of it.
we're I grow you're McDonald's and I grow potatoes for you.
The symbiotic.
There you go.
Something healthier.
They're not healthy. I was about to go get some right now. Oh, you guys got to try the native potatoes. The native potatoes are good. The tritaleyas are amazing. But I think our vision is to get people interested into native plants, which Diego and Jacob are doing as
and we
well.
have another group here, another nonprofit
Yeah.
that does native plants.
But I think our goal is to start up a little nursery with you guys and to start up a group of propagators, of growers, and to show you guys how to grow plants, how to collect seed. So our next class we're planning for August will be a hands-on seed processing and
at Community Roots. Is that or
I think the email hasn't been sent yet, so we're trying to arrange it. It's going to be here in August. We have the date though, right? August 13th.
Yeah. So we have to make sure with them, but
Yeah.
Community Roots Garden is our next 2 workshops, and with Antonio.
Yeah,
So-
and it'll be, I believe in doing stuff as cheap as possible. Pallets, cinder blocks, vámonos.
Yep.
Like, and you should be able to grow 1,000 plants just under that tent right there, okay? And whatever you want to do with them, repopulate Oxnard, give them out, like sell them. Like these little plants right here, if someone's trying to start business, those plants would sell for 80 cents to $1.20, and these guys are about $1.50 to $3 right now, right? That's wholesale. Like that's not selling them, So there's a lot of money to be made, and that's not why. I take it back. Yeah, it's part of why I do it. It's the whole reason. I'm just trying to get new boots. Boots are falling. Yeah. So we'll be around if you guys. We have actually propagation classes in Newbury Park scheduled for July 20th, which is a Thursday. We'll be there 9 to 12. So if you guys want to go to our Samo Fund website, you'll find it. And then Saturday, July 22nd. So I'm going to do a food class in Camarillo, and then we'll do a propagation class in Newbury Park that day. It's a 3-hour class. We're actually going to take you through how to take a plant that you've never heard of before and how to find out when it flowers, how to find out what the seed looks like, and then how you would plan growing the plant. So it's not super, super in-depth, but it gives you I think with corn and tomato, you guys know what those seeds look like because we've usually eaten them or planted them. But a lot of stuff, like monkey flower or like penstemon or sage, like a lot of people don't know what the seeds look like. So just to get you guys into it. My email's right there. If you guys have any questions, we would love to connect with you guys. So yeah, thank you, Aurelio, for hosting us. Yeah.
And everyone, thanks for coming. We're gonna have again 2 more workshops this year at hopefully Community Roots Garden, and you'll learn more about what we're doing, and you'll learn more about native plants. So again, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Sure. Is it grown? Yeah. Was it in a pot or in the ground? Yeah, it's probably because you need to fertilize it, or like growing in a pot, they need a lot of water. Yeah.
And then 2 will make it
Yeah.
sort of like corn pollinated.
Due to the
Yes.
golden.
These are golden crisps. Yeah, they're a little small, so if you know what you're doing, I would put them in the ground. If you don't know what you're doing, I'll put them in the pot. And then plant them in the winter. Just like walnut. Yeah. And then you guys just leave your email. We'll send you the receipt. The check. Don't forget to get your car washed or donate. You got a bunch of free stuff. Break bread. Yeah, like one. Ready? Yeah. What's up, brother? Yeah.
Thank you.
Actually, I always take with a gut, and then when there's anything left over.
What do you guys do? It's good to see you guys.
Well,
Yeah.
the bagels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're gonna do some stuff with us too.
Nice. Great. Did you have you started your issue?
Explain.
You're gonna-
The permitting process.
Oh, that's right.
We
Huh?
have the spot.
From downtown, right?
Yeah.
It's like in front of the Goodwill.
Okay.
Just like a
Yeah.
black spot in front of the Goodwill.
Yeah.
It's like-
Yeah. So we're going through the process. People there, they're excited.
Well, maybe-
Actually, they're